Hi. The lesson for K to 6 for Sunday, May 20th, 2012 is lesson 5, Jesus' grave is opened. That's found in Matthew 27 and Matthew 28, several selected verses. This is a pretty interesting section here. And the year we're in for Sunday School, year B, we don't talk about as much as Jesus' resurrection itself, the Easter account. Kind of jump in our lessons from the crucifixion until this point, which focuses more on the Jewish leaders' efforts to really discredit Jesus' resurrection and to kind of throw the disciples under the bus and say that they were the ones that did this. And the key points here, first of all, Jesus' resurrection is a fact. There's no getting around it. The Jewish leaders worked extremely hard in this lesson, and the accounts you'll read from Matthew 27 worked extremely hard to prove that it didn't happen, and to just out and out lie and say, no, Jesus' body was taken. But there's no getting around it. Jesus' resurrection is a fact. We weren't there, but we believe that by faith. The second key point is that people will go to great lengths to deny Jesus as Savior. As you read these sections, it's kind of sad just to see, here's the truth that's right out in front of the Jewish leaders' eyes, and the lengths that they go to and the things that they do to make sure that that truth is denied are just sort of incredible. A few of the storytelling items. This lesson, beginning of this lesson, takes place on Holy Saturday, between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. So Jesus has been crucified, but he has not yet risen from the grave. Now the Jewish leaders had obviously gotten Jesus killed, but that wasn't enough. So now they're going to Pontius Pilate and still trying to damage his reputation, and they call him, this traitor. They say that this man said that he would destroy the temple, and 3 days later he would raise it up again. Basically going to Pilate and saying, this guy said he would rise again in 3 days. So in order to prevent someone from taking his body and giving the impression that it happened, we want you to post a guard there to make sure it can't happen, that nobody can break into the tomb and take his body. So that's kind of surprising, actually, that they remember his prophecy. He had said, I'm going to be dead for 3 days and I'm going to rise again. And here you see the Jewish leaders remembered those words. It obviously had stuck with them because he had said those a long time before this, but the meaning behind those words they just didn't get. The other thing was they were actually desecrating the Sabbath by going to Pilate. The whole time they had acted like they were so worried about the Sabbath. The bodies can't be up on the cross on the Sabbath. We can't enter Pontius Pilate's palace before the Sabbath because we don't want to become unclean. But you see, when there's something that they want to do, it doesn't matter. All these laws just go out the window. So here it is, Saturday, the Sabbath. They're not supposed to do any work. But here they are going to do work, talking to Pilate, and also entering his palace. So all those old laws, it's all for show. Their theory is that Jesus' disciples are going to break into the tomb and take Jesus' body and then just tell everyone, oh yeah, Jesus rose from the dead. The fact of the matter is the disciples were so shocked by seeing Jesus die, they couldn't have carried out this plot if they had really even wanted to. They were just sort of locked into this room in Jerusalem. So as far as being criminal masterminds or making some big plot or plan here, it was out of the question. Now at this point, as you might imagine, Pilate's pretty sick of the Jewish leaders. They forced him to kill what he knows was an innocent man, and they're just pushing him, and finally he says here, just go take care of this. Seal the tomb as best as you know how. Just get out of my palace. So you see Pilate starting to get pretty irritated with these men. So the Jewish leaders go to the tomb, and they do make it as secure as they know how. They roll a stone in front of the tomb. They put two guards in front of the tomb. They take wax and put the wax over between the stone and the tomb itself, and then they put Pilate's little stamp, his insignia. They put that in the wax. So if anyone would have moved the tomb at all, that wax is going to expand, and that insignia is going to disappear, or it's going to be stretched. So this was completely safeguarded. There's no way someone could get into the tomb without people knowing. So this brings us to kind of a funny point. What was the one thing the Jewish leaders worked extremely hard to avoid. The one thing they wanted to make sure is that no one broke into the tomb. No one's going to break into this tomb whatsoever. And then as soon as the guards bring back the report that, guess what, Jesus' body is gone, what's the first instinct the Jewish leaders have? We should tell everyone somebody broke into the tomb. The one thing they had been trying to safeguard against, and as soon as something happens against that plan, they just flip. It's almost like, we talk about politicians will spin a story for their good. Jewish leaders are just experts at that and just can flip 180 degrees, whatever serves their purpose. An earthquake accompanied the angel's descent to the tomb. You'll read that an angel came down to the tomb and rolled the stone away, not to let Jesus out. Jesus was already gone. The angel rolls the stone away to let everyone see, yeah, it's empty. Jesus is gone. So Jesus isn't, pounding on the other side of the stone, waiting for the angel to come let him out. That's not how it goes. But God sends an earthquake to accompany Jesus' resurrection. So you think, when was the last time an earthquake is mentioned? Well, it's only 3 days before, at Jesus' death. So you have Jesus' death, massive earthquake. Jesus' ascension, massive earthquake, or Jesus' resurrection, I should say, massive earthquake. God is tying these events together and also signifying, I'm about to do a mighty act. My son is going to not only die as true God and true man, but he's going to rise again from the dead. As you might imagine, these two guards saw the angel and they freaked out. So scared, so overwhelmed that they passed out. In fact, Matthew's account says that they became like dead men. So they passed out from fear, but not before they had witnessed everything. That's a big point. Because later on, Matthew says that they went and told these Jewish leaders everything that they had seen. That means everything. It means they had seen the angel come down. It means they had witnessed the earthquake. And it means especially when that stone rolled away, they saw that it was empty. No one was in there anymore. That's the biggest thing that freaks them out, is that, yeah, his body's gone. And we were there the whole time. There's no way someone could have broken in. So the angel doesn't just roll the stone away. It says, the wording here says that the stone is lying flat. So the angel takes the stone and just kind of flips it over. That stone would have weighed about 8,000 pounds. In other words, about 4 of our mid-sized cars today. These angels are no joke. They're very, very powerful. Matthew is the only one who documents how the guards were bribed to tell their lie. And the reason Matthew feels so compelled to do this is because this story was still circulating among the Jews when he wrote his gospel. The Jews were still telling the story, yeah, the disciples broke in and took Jesus' body. That's really what happened. And Matthew wants to set the record straight and say, no, that's not what happened. Here are the facts. These men were bribed by the Jewish leaders. The other interesting thing here, the chief priests don't attempt to dispute the soldiers' story at all. They don't kind of ask questions, how did this all go? They don't bother to go check out the tomb and make sure they're telling the truth. They just spring into action into spin mode. The other thing is here, the guards had no reason to lie. There was nothing in it for them to lie and say, yeah, an angel appeared. It didn't jive for them just to simply lie. They were paid. They were paid to spread this false report. That's what Matthew tells us. And even this is they're putting themselves at risk by saying that, because the story they spread was that we fell asleep, and while we were sleeping, the disciples broke in. Now that was a pretty big risk for them to tell that story, because the Roman government didn't take too kindly to soldiers falling asleep on the job. So they were really risking serious punishment, but for them, it was better than to tell the story of what actually happened. And plus, they got paid. Some of the teaching items. The fears of Jesus' enemies are very powerful. It can sometimes lead them to do drastic things, and it's the same today. The Jewish leaders went to great lengths to try to disprove what Jesus did. Same is true for the enemies of Jesus, enemies of the church today. They'll go to very aggressive and very big and great lengths to try to deny what Jesus says in the Bible. It's sort of amazing at this point. Amazing is one word. Sad is the right word. They had all this evidence in front of the Jewish leaders and they still don't believe. Here you have finally the soldiers saying, yeah, an angel came down, rolled the stone away, and we saw that it was empty. You know, all these facts right in front of the Jewish leaders' nose, and it's still not enough. Finally, the other teaching item. Jesus' resurrection was witnessed by so many different people. It's real. It happened. We don't need facts to confirm our faith. I mean, that's really the whole point of faith, is that we believe without having all the facts. But Jesus' resurrection is a historical fact. That's sort of beautiful, that the historical record confirms that. The other thing about when the gospel writers wrote their books, they wrote them soon enough after Jesus had ascended into heaven, and these books were so widespread that if someone had a question or took issue with the things that were written in these books about Jesus rising from the dead, guess what? The witnesses were still alive. So you could go to these people who saw Jesus and get this confirmed. Is this really what happened? And they could say, yeah, as hard as it is to believe, this is what we saw. All right, blessings on your teaching. God bless your weekend.